Kaylee Morrison's scream echoed through the quiet suburbs of Philadelphia. At that moment, her mother Diane at the wheel was too stunned to know what to do. Her 7-year-old daughter sat in the back seat, eyes wide with terror, pressing her hands to her chest. "My head hurts so much, but the car wasn't broken," she screamed. The steering wheel locked up. The brakes didn't work. Diane pulled over to the side of the road in a panic. They had just taken a normal turn. There was no danger, but Kaylee was shaking as if she had been in a real accident. Put yourself in Diane's shoes for a moment. How would you feel? It all started 3 months ago. When Kaylee saw Grace Kelly in an old Hollywood movie her family was watching on television, she had strangely fixed her eyes on the screen. As she silently watched the elegant platinum blonde woman on the screen, she suddenly said something that froze Diane's blood. "Isn't that me?" Diane tried to laugh it off. "No, sweetie. She is a very famous actress. Her name is Grace Kelly. She lived a long time ago." But Kaylee insisted. Her eyes were still fixed on the screen in horror. "I know who I am. I lived in Monaco. I was a princess, and then there was that accident." From that moment on, Kaylee's life began to get strange. She hated turns. When her mother turned the car, the little girl had panic attacks. "Slow down, Mom. Please slow down," she begged. "Mountain roads are very dangerous. The brakes might fail." But they lived in Philadelphia. There were no mountains here. There were no dangerous turns. Just normal traffic on suburban streets. Diane tried to understand where her daughter's fear came from. Maybe something she saw on television had affected her. Maybe a story she heard from her friends had lodged itself in her subconscious. But it didn't make any sense. One night, Kaylee started screaming in her sleep. When Diane rushed into her room, she found her daughter talking in her sleep. "Stephanie is here with me. Tell my daughter I'll be okay. Please tell her that." Diane gently woke Kaylee. The little girl looked at her mother, her eyes filled with tears. "Were you having a nightmare, sweetie?" Kaylee shook her head. "No, I was remembering that day in the car. I was with my daughter. Her name is Stephanie. I tried to tell her, but I couldn't speak. I was in so much pain." The next day, Diane started researching online. Grace Kelly, Princess of Monaco, a legendary actress who went from Hollywood to royalty. And then she found something. The 14th of September, 1982, Grace Kelly died in a tragic car accident. Her daughter, Princess Stephanie, was with her. The accident had happened on a mountain road in Monaco, in a winding section. Diane's hands trembled. How could Kaylee know this? They had never discussed it. Kaylee had only seen Grace Kelly in that movie. Princess Stephanie had never been mentioned at home. But the most shocking event was yet to come. A week later, Diane took Kaylee to child psychiatrist Dr. Patricia Brennan. Maybe it was trauma, maybe an overactive imagination, maybe just childhood fear. Dr. Brennan began talking to Kaylee in her office. "Can you tell me why you were afraid of cars?" Kaylee took a deep breath. "I am scared because of that accident in 1982. I was in the car. My daughter was with me. We were coming home from Monaco." Dr. Brennan frowned. A 7-year-old child was talking about a date from 40 years ago. She spoke as if she had been there. "Do you remember that day?" Kaylee nodded. "I had a terrible headache that morning. I was having a stroke that day. I got in the car because I had to go home." Dr. Brennan couldn't hide her surprise. A stroke? How did Kaylee know about the theory that Grace Kelly had suffered a stroke before the accident? This theory had been discussed in the autopsy reports after the accident, but it had never been publicly proven. "Go on," said the doctor. Kaylee's eyes focused into the distance. It was as if she was reliving that moment. The steering wheel suddenly got heavy on the curve. I had no strength left in my arms. I hit the brakes, but they didn't work. No, the brakes weren't faulty. I couldn't press the pedal. My body wasn't responding. The little girl began to tremble. Stephanie was screaming. The car rolled down the hill. What I felt was broken glass and the smell of perfume. The air was filled with perfume. The bottle had broken. Dr. Brennan was shocked by what she heard. The perfume bottle detail had hardly been mentioned anywhere. She looked at Diane. "Did you know about this detail?" Diane shook her head, her face pale. "Number, I never heard it." Dr. Brennan looked at Kaylee. "What did that perfume smell like?" Kaylee thought for a moment before answering. "It smelled floral, jasmine and rose. It was my special perfume. I ordered it from Paris. The bottle was gold-colored, an elegant design. It broke when the car rolled and spilled everywhere. That night, Dr. Brennan researched for hours. She examined the Monaco accident reports. She searched the Grace Kelly archives. She combed through everything. And then she found a sealed document. She found a report accessible only to the royal family and the investigation team. A broken perfume bottle was found among Princess Grace's personal belongings in the vehicle, gold-plated and French design. Its contents were scattered throughout the vehicle during the trauma. This information was not in any public source. It was not mentioned in any documentary or book. How did a 7-year-old child know a detail that only appeared in the secret documents of the Monaco Palace? Diane and Dr. Brennan met again the next day. This is extraordinary. It is the first time I've encountered a case like this. The details Kaylee mentioned are impossible for a normal child to know. But we have to approach this scientifically. Maybe it is a coincidence. What if it is not? What if she really remembers? Dr. Brennan took a deep breath. Then we need to call a colleague of mine at the University of Virginia, Prof. Leonard Walsh. He is one of the world's most respected experts on childhood reincarnation cases. If this is real, we'll need the right protocols to prove it. 2 weeks later, Prof. Walsh arrived in Philadelphia. He had studied hundreds of cases over the years, but a claim involving someone as famous as Grace Kelly required extraordinary attention. The first meeting took place at the Morrison family home. Walsh sat down across from Kaylee. There was a voice recorder between them. "Kaylee, can you tell me something about your house in Monaco?" The little girl's face lit up. She looked as if she missed her home. The palace was very big. It overlooked the Mediterranean. There were red flowers in the garden. I loved sitting on the balcony and watching the sea. Walsh took notes, general information, things anyone could know, but then Kaylee continued. There was a big table in my bedroom. I would sit there for hours. I would do my makeup and think about my days. I had a silver brush set on the table. My initials were engraved on it. Grace Kelly. Walsh raised an eyebrow. What else was in that room? Can you tell me something no one else knows? Kaylee thought. There was a small safe behind my wardrobe. I kept my personal letters there. Letters from old friends, people I knew from Hollywood. Even Rainier didn't know they existed. It was my secret. Prof. Walsh contacted Monaco to verify this claim. The royal archives were closed to outside researchers, but thanks to Walsh's reputation, he was able to obtain indirect access. One of the former palace employees confirmed that Princess Grace really did keep a small personal box in her bedroom closet. No one knew what was inside, but its existence was known only to her closest servants. How could Kaylee have known about it? Kaylee's memories were becoming increasingly detailed, but the real shock would come during their trip to Monaco. As Prof. Walsh's research deepened, Kaylee's statements became even stranger. At their next meeting, Walsh showed her photos from Grace Kelly's films. He also mixed in photos of other actors from the same era. Kaylee recognized Grace every time. "That is not me," she said quietly. "I mean, it was my body. But I am not that person anymore. That life is over." Walsh noted this distinction. Most children recounted their past life memories as if they were still that person. But Kaylee had put emotional distance between herself and those memories. "Were you happy in that life?" Walsh asked. Kaylee's eyes misted over. "At first, yes. Hollywood was exciting. The lights, the cameras, the beautiful dresses captivated me. Then I went to Monaco. I married Rainier, and everything changed. I lost my freedom. I wasn't an actress anymore. I was a princess, and princesses can't do what they want. Every day there are protocols, rules, and duties. I loved my children, but sometimes I missed that house in Philadelphia. Those simple days with my family." Walsh was surprised by what he heard. Grace Kelly's relationship with her family in Philadelphia was not detailed in biographies, but Kaylee spoke as if she felt a personal longing. "What was your father's name?" Walsh asked. "Jack Kelly. He was an Olympic rower, a very strong and determined man. My father taught me determination." Walsh checked all of these statements. The words Jack Kelly had said to his daughter only appeared in accounts by family members. They were not in any public source. Diane was now completely convinced. "What should we do?" she asked Walsh. The professor replied with a serious expression, "We must go to Monaco. We must take Kaylee to those places. We must observe her reactions. If she truly carries Grace Kelly's memories, she will recognize the palace, the road where the accident happened, even the smells and sounds." 3 months later, the Morrison family and Professor Walsh went to Monaco. Kaylee suddenly became tense as the plane landed. "This airport is new. It was much smaller when I was here." Walsh took note. Indeed, Monaco's Nice-Fait-Azur airport had undergone major renovation since the 1980s. As they exited the airport, Kaylee, breathing in the scent of the Mediterranean, smiled. "I remember this smell: salty sea, pine trees, and jasmine, the smell of home." Diane couldn't hold back her tears. Her daughter was happy, as if she had returned home after years. But the real test would come when they went to the prince's palace. They toured the sections open to tourists. Kaylee looked silently at each room. This part was always open to the public. But the places we actually lived were upstairs, in the private wing. Walsh requested permission to access the private floors. He explained that they were there for research, conducting reincarnation studies. The guide looked skeptical. "Is your child claiming to be Princess Grace?" Walsh nodded. "We just want to test it. If it is wrong, we need to know. But if it is true," the guide paused. Then he left to speak with his manager. An hour later, they received special permission. The palace's former manager, an elderly woman, took them upstairs. "I knew Princess Grace very well. I was a maid here in the 1970s. When they entered the bedroom." Kaylee hesitated. The room had been redecorated after Grace's death. The furniture had changed, the walls had been repainted. But Kaylee walked straight to a corner. "My desk was here. I could see the sea from here." The old maid froze. "Yes, that is right. This is exactly where it was." Kaylee stepped out onto the balcony. She looked out at the Mediterranean. "I spent a lot of time here, especially when I wanted to be alone. I would think about my old life in Philadelphia. I would imagine my acting days." She turned and looked at the maid. "You brought me tea every morning, Earl Grey, without milk, and sometimes we would talk outside of protocol." The old woman's mouth hung open. "How can you remember that? Those conversations were just between us. I never told anyone." Prof. Walsh led Kaylee to the closet. "Where is the secret box you told us about?" Kaylee opened the closet and looked in the far corner. "It should be here." Her hand touched a small panel on the wall. She pressed lightly, and a small panel moved. Behind it was an old, dusty metal box. The maid stepped forward. "This is the box we couldn't find even when the princess died. We searched for this box for years. How did you know?" Diane and Walsh couldn't believe their eyes. Kaylee, a 7-year-old child, had found a long, lost object. When they opened the box, old letters, postcards, and small mementos came out. They were all items from the Hollywood era. A note from Cary Grant, a thank you letter from Hitchcock, a personal letter from an old friend, Rita Gam. Kaylee took the letters in her hands, her eyes filling with tears. "This was my past. I brought them with me when I came to Monaco, but I never showed them to anyone. They were my secret. I kept them to remember that I was once Grace Kelly." Walsh noticed the distinction in Kaylee's words. The child understood that that life was over, that she was someone else now. The next day, the hardest test came. They went to the road where the accident had happened. They came to the D37 road, the winding mountain road leading from Monaco to La Turbie. Kaylee began to tremble as she got into the car. "Do we have to go?" she whispered. Diane held her hand. "We're just going to look, sweetheart. No one is forcing you." They drove slowly. Kaylee looked out the window, tensing up at every turn. This turn, it happened right here. The car stopped. When they got out, Kaylee just stood there at that spot. "My head hurt so much that day, but I had to go. Stephanie was with me. Then we came here, and suddenly, I had no strength left in my arms. I couldn't turn the steering wheel. Stephanie screamed. The car spun out of control. We started rolling. Then everything went dark." Diane hugged her daughter. Prof. Walsh was silently recording. The details in Kaylee's description matched the findings in the autopsy reports, but the most shocking moment came when they visited Monaco Hospital. Kaylee stopped suddenly as she walked down the corridor. They brought me here. Stephanie was trying to hold me. She was crying, "Mom, wake up, please wake up." I lay in this room, my consciousness was coming and going. Rainier came, my children came. I wanted to tell them I would be okay. My body was exhausted. Walsh asked for permission to check the hospital records. The room number where Grace Kelly was admitted on the 13th of September, 1982, was the same as the room Kaylee had pointed out. That night at the hotel, Walsh reviewed his findings. The Kaylee Morrison case was one of the strongest pieces of reincarnation evidence he had ever documented. Verifiable details, emotional consistency, information no one could have known. He turned to Diane. "This is real. I can't explain it scientifically, but I believe Kaylee carries Grace Kelly's memories." Diane nodded. "What happens now?" Walsh took a deep breath. "Now we will learn to live with this information, and perhaps Kaylee has something to learn from this experience." After returning from Monaco, Kaylee's memories took on a different dimension. She was now beginning to remember not just the tragedy but Grace Kelly's entire life. One evening, while watching an old movie in her family's living room, Rear Window appeared on the screen. Kaylee immediately began to speak. "I loved that movie. Working with Hitchcock was wonderful, but Jimmy Stewart was very stubborn in that scene. We shot the kissing scene 7 times because Hitchcock didn't like the angle." Diane looked at her daughter in surprise. "How do you know that?" "I remember. It was the day of the shoot. I was tired, but I had to maintain my professionalism." Kaylee's Hollywood memories went beyond general knowledge. She remembered not just the films, but the daily details on set, her personal interactions with other actors. One day, when an old photo album was shown, Kaylee smiled when she saw Grace next to Bing Crosby. Bing was very kind. He tried to teach me to sing on set, but I was very shy. I wasn't a real singer. I was an actress. Walsh researched the behind-the-scenes stories of high society. Bing Crosby giving Grace Kelly singing lessons was only mentioned in the memories of old set photographers. There was no such detail in any public source. This emotional depth impressed Prof. Walsh. Kaylee remembered not just the events, but the feelings too. She understood Grace Kelly's inner conflicts, the pressures, the loneliness. "So, why did you go to Monaco?" Walsh asked. "If you were unhappy in Hollywood, why marry a prince and put yourself under even more constraints?" Kaylee thought for a long time. "Because I wasn't real in Hollywood. I was always playing a character. Even when the cameras were off, I had to be Grace Kelly. I had to be perfect, elegant, and controlled. But Rainier, he promised me a real life. We would be a family. But I was wrong. In Monaco, I had to play a character too. Only this time, I played the role of a princess." Dr. Patricia Brennan continued to monitor Kaylee's emotional state. One day, Kaylee asked her mother an unexpected question. "Mom, can you take me to the old Kelly house in Philadelphia?" Diane was surprised. "You mean the house where Grace Kelly was born?" Kaylee nodded. "Yes, my family lived there. I want to see it." 2 weeks later, the Morrison family went to East Falls, Philadelphia, 3901 Henry Avenue, NU, Grace Kelly's childhood home. It was now privately owned, but the owner occasionally allowed tourists in. When they knocked on the door, an elderly man opened it. Diane explained the situation, briefly recounting Kaylee's story. The man looked skeptical, but decided to let them in. As soon as Kaylee stepped into the house, she took a deep breath. "This smell, furniture Polish, and my mother's cooking. I still remember it." She went up the stairs. Without hesitation, she went into a room. "This was my room. I used to look out the window and dream. I dreamed of going to Hollywood one day." The landlord was following behind them, his eyes wide. "This really was Grace's room, but how do you know that?" Kaylee smiled. "I remember. Months passed. Kaylee's case was officially documented at the University of Virginia. It was filed as the Grace Kelly Reincarnation case. Walsh presented his findings at an international conference. The reactions were mixed. Some scientists were fascinated. Others remained skeptical. But no one could deny this. Kaylee Morrison possessed information that was impossible for her to know through normal means. Diane was worried about how this experience would affect her daughter. "How will this affect her when she grows up?" she asked Dr. Brennan. The doctor smiled. Kaylee is growing up with an extraordinary gift. She possesses the wisdom of 2 lifetimes. She will decide for herself how to use it. Walsh wanted to test Kaylee once more, this time using a different method. He played her music from the Grace Kelly era, Cole Porter, Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby. Kaylee recognized some, became emotional with others. But when one song played, she completely broke down. True Love. The song she sang as a duet with Bing Crosby. I was so happy singing that song, she cried. The film set, the music, Bing's warm voice. Everything was perfect. I thought I would always remember that moment. She brought her hands to her face. And I really do remember. I still remember. Walsh announced that he would document Kaylee's case in a book. Your story could teach the world something important. That death isn't the end. That consciousness continues, and that love, memories transcend time. Kaylee nodded thoughtfully. But people might not believe me, Walsh smiled. Some won't, but some will. And maybe someone who hears your story will find the courage to understand their own past. Maybe someone who has lost a loved one will understand that death is just a transition. When Kaylee's story began to spread in the media, the reactions were much more intense than expected. Some people accused her of fraud. Some saw it as a miracle. But the most touching reactions came from Monaco. A close friend of Princess Stephanie contacted Walsh. Stephanie heard this story. She was deeply moved. That accident never left her. She has been in therapy for years. Remembering her mother's final moments still upsets her. Stephanie had a request. She wanted to meet Kaylee. A video conference was arranged. When Stephanie appeared on the screen, she was now a middle-aged woman. But the weight of that accident was still in her eyes. She looked at Kaylee and shed tears. Can you talk to me? Can my mother speak through you? Kaylee nodded. I am no longer Grace, but I carry her memories. And I know she loved you very much. After the accident, she worried most about you. She wanted to tell you she'd be okay, but she couldn't. Stephanie sobbed. Was it my fault? We had argued that day. Maybe I distracted her. Kaylee's voice spoke in a firm tone. Number, it wasn't your fault. It was never your fault. I was having a stroke. I couldn't control my body. Even if you hadn't been there, the accident would still have happened. But I want you to know that in my final moments, as my consciousness drifted in and out, I felt you, and that gave me strength. Stephanie swayed at the screen. He would have wanted you to know that I forgave him, because her body couldn't take it anymore. The two women cried on either side of the screen. One a princess, one a 7-year-old child. But in that moment, time and space didn't matter. There were only two souls connected by a bridge. After the call, Diane tucked Kaylee into bed. This was very hard for you, wasn't it? Kaylee was tired but peaceful. No, Mom. It was the right thing to do. I gave Stephanie what she needed. She won't carry that guilt anymore, and maybe I won't carry that accident anymore either. Indeed, that night, Kaylee slept without fear of curves for the first time. Watching her daughter, Diane understood that reincarnation wasn't just about remembering the past. It also meant healing, closure, and moving forward. Prof. Walsh wrote the following conclusions as he concluded the case. The Kaylee Morrison case is one of the turning points in modern reincarnation research. The amount of verifiable evidence, emotional consistency, and most importantly, the therapeutic effect, make this case extraordinary. Kaylee doesn't just carry Grace Kelly's memories. She uses those memories to heal herself and others. The findings were placed in a special archive at the University of Virginia. Grace Kelly's family made no official statement, but behind the scenes they indicated that they took Kaylee's story seriously. A year later, when Kaylee turned 8, her memories began to fade. This was a common occurrence in childhood reincarnation cases. Dr. Brennan explained, as the brain develops, past life memories recede into the background. New experiences, new memories take their place. This is a natural and healthy process. Kaylee noticed this change. I don't remember everything clearly anymore, she admitted. It is like an old dream. I know I was there, but the details are blurry. Diane was concerned. Does that upset you? Kaylee smiled. Number, because now I have my own story, Kaylee's story, and it is beautiful too. But some things never changed. Kaylee's grace, her way of speaking, her posture, Grace Kelly's influence was still there, but it wasn't dominant anymore. One day at school, a friend told her she looked like a princess. Kaylee laughed. "I used to be a princess, but I am not anymore, and I know that being ordinary is much better." Her teacher called the Morrisons. Kaylee is an extraordinary child, mature, understanding, kind. She comforts other children when they are sad. It is as if she has an old wisdom inside her. Diane smiled. The teacher didn't know it, but she was right. Kaylee really did have an old wisdom inside her. Years passed. Kaylee Morrison lived a normal life. Grace Kelly's children made no official statement, but Princess Stephanie sent a private letter. "Thank you, Kaylee. You gave me the chance to say goodbye to my mother. I am free from the guilt I carried for 40 years. I am at peace now." This letter is Kaylee's most precious treasure. "I was just a conduit," she says. "I came back to deliver Grace's message. Now the message has been delivered. The task is complete. Prof." Walsh wrote this as he completed his research. Kaylee Morrison proved to us that death is not the end. Consciousness continues even if the body changes. Love, memories, lessons are carried on, and sometimes, in very rare cases, the spirit returns to finish unfinished business. It brings peace to those who suffer, and it reminds humanity of the cyclical nature of life. If this story resonates with you, know that you are not alone. Thousands of people around the world carry similar memories. Perhaps you too have experienced familiar places, familiar faces, unexplained fears. Perhaps these are not coincidences. Perhaps they are echoes of your past. Every week, we share these mysterious stories. Real cases, documented evidence research that pushes the boundaries of science. If life, death, and reincarnation intrigue you, join us. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you had a similar experience? Do you believe in the cycle of life? And remember, death is not just a goodbye, but also a hello. Every end is a new beginning. Grace Kelly returned as Kaylee Morrison. She completed her mission. She brought peace to Stephanie. She delivered her message to the world. Now she lives her life as Kaylee. But one day, in a distant future, she may return again. In another body, under another name, because the soul's journey is endless, and love is stronger than death.